Hello there, in this video we will explain step by step how an automation process is designed with the Robusta RPA tool. To do this, we will show you the use of the Robusta RPA Design Studio, and its interfaces by designing a simple RPA process. In this sample process, we will open the YouTube website, and wait for 5 seconds, and then close it. First, we will open the login page of the Modeler module, which is one of the modules in the Robusta Orchestrator application, and log in with our username and password. Modeler module includes the Robusta RPA Design Studio, and menus to create RPA processes and apps. The Processes tab that appears when you log in contains the menus to create, import, search and edit processes. On this page, you can see that all previously designed processes are listed. You can filter the processes under an app by selecting the app in the left pane. You can use the Show All option to list all processes by removing any applied filter. The Create Process button in the upper right corner allows to create a new process, and the Import Process button to import the processes that we have exported from other Robusta Orchestrator environments. Now let's look at how the processes are designed by creating our sample process. For this, let's create a process by clicking the Create Process button. In the Model Name field, we give our process a short descriptive name. This name is displayed by end users on the process start and monitoring pages, and can be updated at any time. In the Model Key field, we enter a key value for our process. When calling our process as a sub-process from another process, we use the model key value. If the model key value changes, the processes that call this process must also be updated. That's why we don't usually change the model key value after we create our process. Model key is not displayed by end users on process start, and monitoring pages and special characters should not be used when naming the model key. In the Priority field, we can assign a priority value to our process by entering a positive number. Doing so, we can determine which of the jobs waiting in the queue will be processed first. Value 1 is assigned in this field for the highest priority process, while a larger number should be entered for lower priority processes. In this process, we will leave this field with the default value of 50. In the Human Effort field, we can enter the information about how long it takes a human to perform the operations in our process. This time is then used to calculate how many man-day work the robot does for reporting purposes. We can write descriptive information about the process we will create in the Description field. This information is viewed by end users during process startup. After completing all the necessary information, let's create our process by clicking the Create New Model button. The interface you can see is our Design Studio where we create our process flow. In the left pane, you can see the activities you can include in your processes. On the right side, you can see the design area where we create the process flow. At the top, you can see the toolbar with shortcuts. By using the buttons in this section, you can perform operations such as cutting, copying, pasting, deleting the activities in the process flow, undoing what you have done, zooming in and out of the design area. Also, you can run your processes by clicking the Run button here for testing purposes. You can expand the design area vertically or horizontally by clicking the arrows that appear when you move the cursor to the edges of the design area. Processes should include only one start activity, and at least one end activity. For this reason, when we create a new process, the start event activity that you see is automatically added to the process. The same condition applies to sub-processes that we add to processes. When you need to add it, you can add this activity to your process by drag and drop of start event activity under the Start Events section. As the next activity in our process, we will use the Open activity under the Applications section to open the YouTube website. Just drag and drop the activities you want to use into the design area as I have just shown, then connect with other activities, and enter the relevant parameters. Since we want the open to be the activity that will run after the start event, we need to create a flow from the start event activity to the open activity. For this, we select the start event activity, and drag the arrow icon from the shortcut activities displayed on the right, and hover over the open activity. When green and red signs appear around the activity, it is okay to drop the arrow. Now, we created our process flow from start event to open activity. When we hover over the arrow icon, we see that both ends are green. If one end of the arrow was red, the flow would be missing and an error would be taken during process validation. When we select an activity by clicking on it in the design area, the parameters of this activity are displayed at the bottom of the screen. Hints are displayed when we hover over the parameter names here. These hints help us with assigning proper values to the parameters. When we click on an empty place in the design area, information about our process is displayed at the bottom of the screen. The first four of the parameters we see when the open activity is selected are common to all activities. Of these, we only edit the name and documentation fields. We leave the id and asynchronous fields as defaults. In the name field, let's write the name of the website that will be opened after the default open value to explain what is done in this step. When the value is entered in the name field similarly in all steps, it becomes easier to understand which operations are performed through the process flow. More detailed descriptive information can be entered in the documentation field. This non-essential information is used later when the documentation of the process is created. All parameters after the first four are specific to the respective activity. The star next to the parameter names indicates that the parameter is mandatory. If data is not entered in these fields, an error will be taken during the validation of the process. Let's enter a reference value without spaces in the application name field, which is the first parameter specific to the open activity. This reference will be available to select in the later activities to determine in which application the operation will be performed. Since we will use Chrome as an application, let's choose the Chrome option from the type field. Before entering a value in the URL field, which is the last mandatory parameter, let's validate our process by clicking the Validate button on the toolbar. As you can see, an error message appeared stating that the mandatory URL parameter was not entered in the activity named Open YouTube. When this message line is clicked, the activity with the error becomes selected. Let's enter the link of the YouTube homepage in the URL field and press the Validate button again. As you can see, no error messages appeared and the validation is successful. Since we want to wait until the page is loaded, let's leave the Wait Until Load option selected. Since we want the page to be opened in full screen, let's choose the Maximize option. Let's leave the other fields blank as they are not mandatory, and we do not want to assign a value to them. In the next step, we want to wait 5 seconds after the YouTube website is opened, and then close it. So, we will use a timer activity. You can find the timer activity in the shortcuts. Since we want to wait 5 seconds after the website is opened, let's write PT5s in the time duration field. In the next step, we add the close activity in the Applications section to close the opened website. In this activity, we select the reference name of the application that we want to close from the list. Finally, let's use an end event to complete our process flow, and validate and save our process. After we see that our process has been successfully validated, we click the Save button. On the screen that opens, there is an option to save the current version of our process as a new version. If we select the Save This as a New Version option here, and save our process, we will create a new version by preserving the last saved version of our process. Then, we will have the chance to revert to an old version whenever we want. We have completed our sample process flow. In order to run our process, we need to include our process in an app. We use apps to group related processes. And, we can define necessary restrictions based on these apps. For example, by combining the main and sub-processes related to an automation process under a single app, we will later be able to select which robots and users can run these processes by adding additional restrictions for the app. Once we included the process in the app, we need to publish the app definition. When we publish an app, we create an executable version of the processes in that application with the saved last versions. Changes we make in the processes will not take effect until the application is published. Now, let's create an app by clicking the Create App button. After giving the name YouTube Search App to explain our business process in the app definition name field, we entered the name YouTube Search App in the app definition key field without using any spaces. In the app group field, we can write the group name we want to include our app in. Since we will not make a grouping here, let's leave this field blank. Then, let's click the Create New App Definition button. Let's include our process in our app by clicking the Edit Included Models button. Let's save our process by clicking the Save button at the top left. At the same time, since we need to publish the app we created, let's click the Save button after selecting the Publish option. You can also publish an app by clicking the Publish button after clicking the app you created at the bottom of the apps page. Now, we can run our process. For this, let's go back to the Processes tab. We see our process in the first place since it is the last updated process. When we hover over our process, two buttons are displayed at the top right. By pressing the button on the right, we can access the Process Design Editor directly. By clicking the button on the left or clicking anywhere on the box, we can view the details of our process. Now let's click somewhere on the box to view the details of our process. In addition to displaying information about our process on this page, we can edit, copy, delete, and download our process using the buttons in the upper right corner. By pressing the Visual Editor button, we can access the Design Editor to make changes in the process flow. When we click on the History field, we can view the version history of our process. In order to revert to an old version, we need to select the version from here. Let's open the Design Editor by pressing the Visual Editor button. Let's click the Run button on the Process Design page to run our process for testing purposes. After clicking the Run button, we select the app and the worker we want to run our process from the list. Here, we have an option to publish the app we selected if any unpublished changes are made in the process. Now, let's press the Run Process button and start the process. As you can see, our process started to work on our robot, and the web page is opened. After waiting for 5 seconds, the web page is closed. When we come to the Scheduler page, where we can get information such as the steps performed in the process flow, and whether it has been completed, let's first choose the app that our process is in. By clicking on the filtering field on the process page that appears on the screen, we can filter and list our processes according to their success status. Here, we see the start and end date of the process, and we can see the process did not have any errors. If it had any, it would have been on this page along with the reason. When we click the Show Diagram button, we can follow the steps of the process, and see the detailed information about the variables that occur in the process. Now, let's enter an invalid URL into the open activity so that the process gets an error so we can see the error displayed on this page. Let's save our process as we made changes in the process. While running the process, let's leave the Publish option selected, and press the Run button so that the new version is published. As you can see, the YouTube page did not open, and our process got an error. Now let's look at the cause of the error from the Scheduler page. Here we can see that we got the connection refused error. When we click the Show Diagram button, we see that the open box is not blue, indicating that this process has failed. As you can see, the error message is here as well. We have completed this video in which we explain how an RPA process is designed with Robusta RPA tool. Hope to see you.